Does anyone else remember Pokemon Quest? Released back in 2018 for the Switch and later ported to mobile, Pokemon Quest felt very much like a spiritual successor to Pokemon Rumble, featuring low-detail Pokemon with a stylized aesthetic and playing as a sort of top-down beat-em-up. Although Rumble is much more fast-paced, whereas Quest had more of an idle approach, focusing more on team building and training your Pokemon. While the gameplay loop was quite simple and a little bit grindy, I got really into Quest when it came out, and even managed to fully complete the game, not just clearing the final levels, but finishing the whole Pokédex in the process. However, in terms of post-game content, there wasn't really a whole lot to do other than raising up new Pokemon. The game does feature shiny Pokemon though, and I remember I did try my hand at hunting for a few shinies before finally putting the game down and moving on. But a few months ago, I saw someone else who'd just gotten into Quest and was showing off their first shiny, and I guess it sparked something in me. After reminiscing on how much I played Quest back in the day, I re-downloaded it to check on my team, and after relearning all the mechanics, I decided I might as well try hunting for a shiny again, specifically the elusive Shiny Mew. Despite being a mythical, Mew can be obtained in this game just like any other Pokemon, by cooking big stews. Different combinations of ingredients will summon different types of Pokemon, and the recipe we want is the Ambrosia of Legends a la Cube, which can be made with any 4 large ingredients and 1 mystical shell to summon Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, Mewtwo, or Mew. It's possible to make larger meals to encounter higher level Pokemon, but these use up more ingredients and take longer to cook. And as far as I can tell, this has no effect on the shiny chance, so we're better off making smaller meals to conserve our ingredients and see Pokemon more frequently. Each meal will finish cooking after you complete a certain number of expeditions, so it would make sense to simply blast our way through an early stage, where the enemies are weak enough to be one-shot by everything we throw at them. However, the mystic shells we need for this recipe are a rare ingredient that's only found within the final area, and seem to be most frequent within the boss level, so we'll have to use this as our grinding level if we want to keep making more legendary stews. With a strong enough team, the final expedition isn't too difficult to beat though. In fact, it quite literally plays itself. Much like a car, Quest can be played in either manual or automatic mode, although manual doesn't actually give you that much more control over your team, since they still automatically charge headfirst towards enemies to attack them. A strong enough team is generally able to handle itself though, so I let them go through expeditions on automatic, and 9 times out of 10 they'll finish the level successfully, usually only failing if the boss pulls out this one specific attack, as it does an obscene amount of damage and can instantly wipe the party if they happen to be standing too close to it. Now, while this is kind of a shiny hunting video, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to also make this video vaguely informative, and there is something I learned about recently that I wanted to talk about while these stews are cooking. It's going to involve a very slight tangent though, so just bear with me for 1 second because I swear this is going to be relevant, alright? Let's talk about Chinese law. The Chinese government has very strict control over its own market, and a game cannot be published there without being granted a license by the National Press and Publication Administration, a governing body which ensures that all media available in China complies with the regulations and values set by the CCP. This is a major hurdle if you want to sell any form of entertainment to the Chinese market, not just because you'll likely have to heavily localize or censor your work to meet these standards, but because foreign companies aren't even allowed to apply for these licenses. To get around this, developers planning to release their games in China have to partner with Chinese companies, who will often undertake development on their behalf to ensure the game is eligible for a publishing license. And while much of this localization process involves the removal of imagery or ideals that the government disapproves of, some of these Chinese games get new features or mechanics designed to appeal to the Chinese market, and the final product can end up looking very different from their international releases. For example, Mojang worked with a company called NetEase to release a free-to-play version of Minecraft under the title My World, which has different mobs, special items, and a new feature called Apocalypse Mode, which involves going to new, creepy dimensions to fight strange bosses. Another prominent example is the Chinese version of PopCap's Plants vs Zombies 2, which was practically developed from the ground up by a separate company called TalkWeb, and features a large amount of new content, as well as a completely different model for monetization and microtransactions, designed to better fit the spending habits of Chinese gamers. And as you might have guessed where this tangent is going, Pokemon Quest is one of those games that has a wildly different Chinese counterpart. Partnering with NetEase, the same company that published the Chinese version of Minecraft, Pokemon Quest entered the Chinese market as Pokemon Adventure in 2021, 3 years after its international launch. And while Pokemon Quest was mostly forgotten about over here, Pokemon Adventure seems to be thriving in China. This was first brought to my attention a few years ago when they started adding Johto Pokemon, as many people were asking why the international version never got this update. But it wasn't until a few months ago that I saw just how different Pokemon Adventure had become. There's PvP, an avatar that you can customize, more mechanics for training your Pokemon, new base decorations, new levels to challenge, and a massively increased roster of available Pokemon, even including alternate forms like Armored Mewtwo, the clone starters, regional Pokemon, and apparently even a few costumes. Even now, the game is still being updated with new events and new Pokemon, and is currently celebrating its 3rd anniversary with a brand new island. Now, as much as I'd love to dive into this version myself and try shiny hunting something unique to Pokemon Adventure, getting this version outside of China isn't easy. It's not as simple as just downloading a file, as many of these Chinese versions require internet access and can only be played within China, or have strict requirements for foreigners trying to register accounts. Out of curiosity, I did look into it, and while it's not impossible to play Pokemon Adventure outside of China, it requires you to set up an account with NetEase, and due to various laws around video games in China, you're required to submit a legal ID and face scan to verify your identity as part of the sign-up process. And as cool as this version looks, I think that's a step further than I'm willing to take just to play a mobile game. Look, I don't care how adorable this propeller hat Torkoal is, I'm not giving my identity to the Chinese government. Anyway, back to the shiny hunt. I actually phased on Zapdos pretty fast, not just once but twice. This is also where I realised that for some reason the playback recording function on the Switch is disabled for Pokemon Quest, so from this point onwards I made sure I was recording through my capture card for any future encounters. As for the Zapdos, I trained one up and added it to my team for the rest of the hunt. And finally, a month later after some on and off hunting, I got my next shiny. I'm getting way too many Articunos. I mean, I suppose I wouldn't mind a shiny Articuno because it's... I already have Zapdos and Moltres, but I do kind of want to get Mew or Mewtwo. That's like my main goal. Here we go, it's a double. Ooh, there it is! Shiny Mewtwo. Haha! Nice. And it's got bulk up too. Oh, that's... I can actually put that on my actual team now. Oh, that is lovely. I kind of only just started recording these with like voiceover enabled just in case I got the shiny, so I'm really glad this like showed up so fast. Oh, that is lovely. Now I can actually focus on writing this thing. When coming back to this game, like after a long while, I kind of forgot how weird the leveling up mechanic is. Because I need to take my Pokemon here, and then I have to basically sacrifice Pokemon to level it up. And Pokemon of the same type, I believe, give a better benefit. So I just get a bunch of Mewtwo's, line them up, and... Now, I'm gonna be honest, I was ready to stop here and just take the Mewtwo. When I first thought about hunting for a shiny Mew, I didn't realise just how low the encounter rate was. With the best recipe possible, we have about a 48% chance of encountering Mewtwo and an equal chance of encountering one of the 3 legendary Kanto birds, leaving only a 4.76% chance of seeing Mew. Out of all the legendary meals I'd cooked so far, I'd seen 80 Mewtwo's and over 200 legendary birds, but Mew had only appeared 13 times. With my shiny Mewtwo in hand, I was ready to wrap up this hunt and finish working on the video, but I decided to let the game run another batch of pots in the background so I could gather more footage while finishing up the script, and, well... Honestly, I'm just recording this in case I happen to get the Mew, because, like, I don't really need to add anything else into this. But I also don't want to miss it if I actually find a Mew. There's a Mew. No way! You gotta be joking me. I banged my knee on my desk just then. You've gotta be joking me. This is like, this is the first set after I got the Mewtwo. I was just gonna stop after getting the Mewtwo. I was just doing this in the background while I was writing the script. I was not actually expecting to get the Shiny Mew as well. What the actual hell? Oh my god, that is... Oh my god. Wow. I'm sorry, I'm just like speechless right now. Wow. Okay, I guess I'm done with quests now. I mean, like, the only thing I need now would be, like... I could do with a Shiny Articuno to complete the trio, because I've already got Zapdos and Moltres, but... Man, Mew was, like, the big ticket that I wanted. Like, this thing is, like, really rare. If you want to see more gameplay of Pokemon Adventure, I'd highly recommend checking out Kawinot, who has a ton of Chinese quest content on their channel, and let me borrow some of their footage for this video.
That was brilliant, Candle, for me. Very much enjoyed